I'm Amy.
And I'm Chris,
Best friends of 30 years.
and we believe A Course in Miracles is the most enlightening,
Albeit slightly difficult,
personal development course we've come across.
we've walked many miles
In several countries,
analyzing and applying the course
we're bringing you our insights,
and challenges
our loves and fears.
as we apply this course to our daily lives,
We love its non-denominational and all-inclusive nature,
and want to share how you too can apply these higher principles in a practical
and hopefully more easeful way.
grab a tea
Or a glass of wine,
and settle in for some laughs and truths as we share real life tribulations.
and how we shift them into miracles. Hey there, it's Chris and Amy, and we are so excited to be here with you guys today. This has been a labor of love putting this together, and we want to share, how this even all came about, because we have been discussing this course and studying this course for how long now, would you say? How long has it actually been?
It's been maybe 10 to 15 years. I think I got it 15 years ago, and you and I have had lots of very interesting conversations around not just the course, but a whole bunch of different sort of metaphysical concepts and spiritual concepts and heart-opening concepts. So I feel like all of it's tied together, but we always seem to come back to the course because it's a really, really strong teaching tool. So
Yeah, and I was going to say, I think for me it came shortly after Jude was born, who's 13 now, so it's crazy. And for me, it started with the movie The Secret, and then, like you said, we just dove into these subjects, right? About creating what we want to create and what's this all about. And then you shared with me the course, actually. You introduced me to it. I do remember that. And then we, like you said, always seem to come back to it. And then maybe within the last few years, really diving into it where, we would have our talks and...
Yeah, like living it. Because I feel like part of the course is reading it and learning the theory about it and going through the workbook. And the purpose of the workbook really is just to live it, because all this stuff is so you have to know from like a very personal experience how things feel when they turn out one way versus when they turn out another. And if you're really getting in touch with your sort of like your inner source and what that feels like, and that just doesn't seem to come overnight. It takes some like work and some living of it. And so that's why it's kind of cool to have people in your life who are also studying it, because you can talk with them about it and you can find out there's really no right or wrong, and everyone has their own pathway, but you can find out like how they're finding their self able to recenter, and how are they able to get back to like seeing things from a perspective that's a more healing perspective. So yeah, you and I have been living it, and then the last few years, what we'll share with you guys is that we live in the same small town, and it is a beach town, which is very nice. And we would get together for beach walks, and we would spend the first half of the beach walk walking up north on the beach, and pretty much like venting out all of our worldly problems to each other, which is also, an okay way to deal with problems, not to stuff them down. And so we would feel like we would vent out all of our emotions and the problems we were going through, and usually the other person would just sort of listen attentively, sometimes validating and sometimes just listening. And then on the way back, we would find ourselves by the end of the walk having come full circle, coming all the way around back to the beginning, and having learned how to see it as a course student, as someone who really wants to take this opportunity to grow and to learn from it, and bank it as an experience that is a growth experience instead of just a hateful one.
Yeah. No, I love that. And I was just thinking too, as you were sharing, just to even dial it back a little bit for everyone and share how long it even took us personally and individually to get through it the first time, because, from what I've been hearing with people I work with and other people who are wanting to study it, is just the kind of consensus is that it can feel really overwhelming and hard to read. And I know for, just sharing my own personal experience, it took me, I want to say, a good 4 years to get through that thing to begin with, right? And mind you, there were some moves in there and there were other things happening, and I'd kind of put it down and then pick it back up. But it took me 4 years to get through the text. So the part of the book where you're reading what it's all about, not the lessons. So the lessons I was able to move through faster, and I actually had to flip to the lessons because I found the text just to be too daunting. So I think I started with the text and then I went to the lessons. I think I moved through those within maybe a year and a half, because there's a lesson for every day of the year. And that wasn't too bad, but the actual text took me 4 years. And it was hard to read it. It really was. How about you? What was your initial experience?
Yeah, my initial experience, same thing. It's just a very, very slow read because
it's a little wordy.
One of the reasons it is actually written the way it is so that it will be a slow read. It is so that you have to work through all of your mud and muck.
It's a good point.
And it's
not a quick read.
Yeah.
Just whiz through and
it's so
bang, I'm done.
deep. It's I'm done, got it, bang, enlightened.
Check, move on.
Yeah. So it's actually like the purpose of it is to drag you through your own stuff that you have to let go of. Like you're hanging on to it. If you weren't, you wouldn't have to get dragged through the mud to let go of it. So it takes so long because some of the concepts can bring up resistance. They can bring up some anxiety even. They can, and that's sometimes why we put it down, and it's totally fine to put it down and be like, I can't handle this right now. Like sometimes we put so much expectation on our own selves, being like, why am I not getting this? But it's all just a process, and it's never meant to be disheartening, because even if it takes you 4 to 10 years to read it, it's not meant to be like a disheartening process. It's meant to actually have you smooth over all the things that you need to work on. And so mine was the same way. It took me years and years to get through the text, and that
really quick brings up such a good point. There's no right or wrong way to do it. It's at your own pace, whatever feels good, whatever breaks you need to take to come back. So were saying,
and I was going to say the workbook too was a, it's 365 lessons, meant to be like 365 days, one for every day of the year. Well, I believe that most people probably don't actually do it that way. I found myself, it's individual, but I found myself, spending a little bit more time on certain lessons, or doing a lesson one day and just being like, oh, I need a break, like for a week or maybe longer, or a day, and then sometimes I would really feel like there was a lesson that really felt good, and I would spend a couple days on that lesson. Sometimes I had no idea why I was even doing the lesson, which is also what's written in the text. It's like sometimes you don't know why you're doing this, and you may not even believe it, but just do it. It is about removing all the old furniture out of your brain and putting all new furniture in and rearranging it, and it's about really reprogramming your thinking, and you may not even know why at the start.
Might not make any sense,
and it may and it may not just happen. Like,
I love the furniture analogy, because I think that's one of the first lessons, if I'm remembering correctly, is that the furniture doesn't mean anything around you. That's like just perfect analogy. Nice. But I was gonna say too that for me, it almost, I don't know how many times I've gone through it now, maybe 3 or 4. But for me, it really wasn't even making sense until the second time. So it's interesting that you said you kind of sat with some of the lessons. I think for me, I more breezed through the lessons, but they didn't even really have a lot of context until I also went through the text fully and then came back and did the lessons again after like getting through the text and then listening to the text again. Like, it's just interesting how it all kind of goes together. Like, really, there's no way to like fast track through it because even if you do, you've got to come back to it, right?
Yeah.
And then it made so much more sense the second time.
And it doesn't it's going to be something different every single time you go and reach for the book even. So even from one day to the next, if you open up a page and you read the same page, you're going to see completely different things from when you looked at it the day before. Not to mention if you do it a year later, there's just so much change, there's so much evolution that we're all going through in every moment, because in every moment we're new, and every moment we're current. The past is gone, and here we are again. We're in another current moment. And so as you open up the course and you look at it, for sure you're going to different experience. You're going to feel different feelings towards it, or different connections to it. And so I love that. Like, even with the course, you can open it at any time, which is why I was going to mention too, it's not disheartening if it takes a long time to read it, or even if you're not fully getting it, because if you open up the course at any time and you read one sentence, that one sentence might be all you need just to, bring you to a different level, or to shift you over out of like a different perspective. And that's all you're really looking for. You don't need to nail it or perfect it or get to the end, or it's just about those little shifts that happen on a daily basis. And sometimes you fall backwards, but sometimes you go forward, and it's about shifting until you get to a point where, stuff happens in life, and you're able to start to say to yourself, like, oh wow, I really, that used to bother me and it doesn't bother me anymore. Or
letting go.
And
letting go of the whole process of how you even learn the course.
Totally.
Letting go in itself.
Right. So
and I was gonna say too, it's just such for me, I'm sure it will always be a lifelong learning, a lifelong process. Like, even when you think you've got it, something comes and you're like, I don't got it, right? And it's like, okay, back to it. And for me, I just love reading a little bit of it every day. I think that will always be a part of my practice, because it just helps me to start the day off on that type of a note, kind of getting grounded, having the perspective, or even helping me shift the perspective of something that I'm working through, like, oh yeah, right, there it is again, like that consistent wake up call. So yeah, I was just gonna say, it's even if you've gone through it once or twice, it's probably gonna be a lifelong process as well.
Yeah, and it's always going deeper and deeper, and like the layers of an onion, right? So you might find that like certain words at the start of the journey is more, feels one way, and then you peel off that layer, you work through it, and you're like, oh, nailed it, got it, and then you're on the next layer, and those same words will help you through just the next layer that you're going through.
Okay, let's talk about that for a second, because what about the whole religious language to begin with? I mean, I had to let go. I didn't really grow up religious. I mean, in Canada, our church was the United Church. I don't think that even exists in the States. It was sort of like an Anglican format, I guess. That's probably not the right way to even say that. Anyways, so we would, go to Sunday school, and that was kind of about it. So for me, when I picked this up, I was used to language from The Secret and other things like the universe that I could get my mind around, that resonated. But then with this book, I was like, whoa, this is really a lot of Christian terminology, which is fine, but it really took me out of my comfort zone.
Right, yeah.
And I know other people that they read that and that's just not their thing, and then they miss all of the goodness in this book because of it. So I know for me, that was a big one, even just letting go of that language. And now in my mind, that's what my thoughts and prayers look like, is completely in alignment with the book. So it's so true with how that shifts over time.
Yeah, because we have, I think it is fairly common to have some resistance against certain, types of packaging, so to speak. So with the Christian language, would say that's like, how it's sort of packaged. It's here's the language, and we have, we talk about he and she and Father, Brother, Holy Spirit. And it's true, like some of that language can be very triggering. And if you find too much resistance, then it can feel really uncomfortable, just the language alone. And so the concepts may not come through as easily as you're reading the course, because you're like, oh my gosh, I'm so caught up on this language, and it's really triggering me, and it feels uncomfortable because why are they saying he and not he, she, or
right.
It's just, like you can
not politically correct.
Yeah, it's not very politically
rights.
Yeah, and really it's just the way it's packaged, and I remember Ken Wapnick, who has done just so much work with the course and so much teaching, and he's passed away now, but in one of his lectures, he mentions how if somebody is getting triggered by the language, by the religious and Christian language that's in the book, then it's okay to be triggered. You should not judge yourself about being triggered. But you might want to look at that. You might want to look at that resistance.
That's a good point. Oh, for any language in life, right?
It's just another opportunity to let go. And this is not written in a way that is meant to have us all follow a certain way of talking. It's very open-minded, very open-hearted type of theory, but they have to use some kind of language to convey the information. So there it is. And if it triggers you, then okay, that's fine. And you might want to take a look at why it triggers you or how to work through that. And that's ultimately the whole goal of this course is anything that triggers you, anything that brings you unhappiness and pain in your life, anything at all, even if it's just language in a book. Take a look at it, because that's in one way that you're holding on, and you're holding on to some anger, and you're holding on to some things that are not serving your overall happiness. So
even old stories or beliefs around the way things should be, or things maybe you were taught as a child. So many things to look at. But I love that, because that's really why we were drawn to it, is because of its non-denominational nature, right? And it's all inclusive, and it just for us feels so much more spiritual and all encompassing than any one religion. It's really inclusive of everything, but it does use that language. Okay, so that's kind of our journey. And if it's not clear, we're both Canadian, if you haven't heard our accents.
What is it about?
So we have been friends for a really long time and started this journey in Canada. Now we're both in California, and have enjoyed so many conversations even prior to our beach walks, and then more officially or formally, I would say, right? Doing our beach walks, where we would meet up and really dive into this. And I think even at one point before our beach walks, we thought we really wanted to study this together once a week. Even though we were both busy and doing other things, we just knew it was the most important time we could take.
Yeah.
And then it kind of evolved into the beach walks, which was really cool.
Yeah.
So, that brings up a good point. Find somebody that you resonate with, or reach out to us, and, however we can help and support as you are navigating through this, as are we, even though we've gone through it a few times. Like we said, we're always learning new things, and knowing we too still need to have a shift in perspective. So
and it's meant to be a book that's studied individually However, like Chris just said, it's a great thing to do on your own, and you can sort of feel your own growth. But I've found it so helpful to have somebody else who almost just keeps you in that perspective.
Yeah, who brings you back. Because like you said, the beach walk, we would, talk about what's coming up for us in life. And then the way back of the walk would be that shift in perspective.
Yeah, and it's so good. Because we can totally agree that life is happening around us, and we're seeing it as our real reality and everything that's happening in our life feels like it is the most important thing. And this is, our story, and this is how our story is unfolding. But there's a whole other perspective out there, and that's why it's nice to be studying that and have someone who's helping you stay on that track as well. So it's like having...
And I think it gives you that permission too to just study it the whatever way you want. Like I remember back in Oakville in Ontario, Canada, back in the day, belonging to a group that was studying it too. Mm-hmm. And one lady was just so hilarious because she was judging herself on, now I'm trying to do the lessons, and now I have all these thoughts and I can't focus on the lesson and blah, 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 blah. And our instructor was just like, it's okay, this whatever way you want, like basically what we're saying today, it's okay whatever way you go through it. But just her sharing, so she's going through it individually, we all were, but then coming to this meeting and being like, hey, this is what's coming up for me, and all of us being like, oh, thank God, that's happening to you too. Okay, we can all let go of that. There's no right or wrong way to do this thing, So it's nice to feel connected to other people as you're moving through it. Yeah. Do we want to read that little blurb? Maybe we'll finish off with reading the intro, and then I think we've kind of already said it, but what the course, has meant for us.
Yeah. So I'll read the introduction. This is the first thing that you see when you open up the course, aside from the table of contents here. The introduction says, "This is a course in miracles. It is a required course. Only the time you take it is voluntary. Free will does not mean that you can establish the curriculum. It means only that you can elect what you want to take at a given time. The course does not aim at teaching the meaning of love, for that is beyond what can be taught. It does aim, however, at removing the blocks to the awareness of love's presence, which is your natural inheritance. The opposite of love is fear, but what is all-encompassing can have no opposite. This course can therefore be summed up very simply in this way. Nothing real can be threatened. Nothing unreal exists. Herein lies the peace of God." So that's the first thing you see when you open up the text. And another comment I was going to make, just because we've been spending time talking about like how to actually approach the course, like how to read it, how to share it, how to implement it in your own day-to-day. One other thing that I would recommend as well is that sometimes just let it wash over you. It's like when I read that, I was like, what are they talking about? Like, what? But instead of like dissecting it word for word, which also sometimes feels like you have an urge to do that, sometimes just let the words wash over you and just read them and just feel them. And you're like, I don't know what this is talking about, but it feels good. It's telling me everything is okay. And I don't even know if that's what it's telling me, but that's what I'm feeling. When I read these words, like they feel very comforting. And sometimes you can just read the text that way too. Just read them and have no idea what you're talking about, but the end result is going to be okay.
And sometimes you just need to downright argue it out with someone. I was just thinking back to like some of our conversations, and I'd be like, it just doesn't make any sense.
Yeah.
Like what is this? And I could feel like the resistance and like the anger of trying to get my mind around it, right? And but now when you read it,
it feels calming.
Like, oh, yeah, that makes sense.
But even arguing it out, like you might have some course students saying, well, no, that's your ego coming up and it's being analytical. But you know what? We think that it's bring out that side of you if it's present. If it's here in the room and it wants to argue, then bring it up. And then the other person hopefully will be able to hold that space for you and say, Yeah, I get what you're saying. And okay, let's hang on to it for a second, and you'll actually feel between the two of you, you'll kind of feel it shift into all of a sudden being like,
Yes.
okay, I get it. Okay, so it's not so much about, analyzing this or analyzing that, and the fight comes out, which is fine, and then but you don't have to name it and be like, that's bad. That's the ego
Yes.
who's trying to analyze it and fight against it.
That
Have the fight.
help,
Yeah.
Right? It's like someone telling you to calm down when you're angry. Never gonna work. Husbands, men, if you're listening, does not work. Yeah. That's why you need to choose someone, if you are going to study it with someone or a group that you really feel safe with.
Yeah,
and comfortable.
who's not going to judge.
Not going to judge, hold the space, like you said. I love that.
Yeah, because if you do start arguing about something, it is true, like the first thing you could say as a course student is, that's your ego coming out. And it's almost the way of saying, like, you don't want to tell somebody, please shut down your ego. Please stop doing what you're doing. Because you want someone to allow you to sort of
just to hear you,
see it for what it is, and move on from it in a very organic way, instead of shaming someone because they're not quote unquote doing the course properly.
Yes,
because that's the biggest thing, is do not judge. Don't judge yourself, and don't judge someone else.
Shaming allowed.
Even if someone came in and they were the biggest ego of the whole place, don't judge them. Allow them to be who they are, and if you find yourself judging them, don't judge yourself for judging them. It's just
that's a good one,
a whole bunch of a snowballing of judging, and all of a sudden now we're the higher person saying, well, they're doing it wrong. Well, no, that's not true at all. This is all about always letting go and always saying, how can I let go more? How can I judge less? How can I, even though I'm dying to say that guy's okay, how can I actually save myself the anguish of holding on to this high and mighty feeling? Because it's not really actually a good feeling.
And that's probably one of my biggest takeaways from this book, is that we all are equal. Mm-hmm. You just realize that you're not, and we can get more into this later, but that we're just not any different than one another. So even if I've read it 5 times and you're just starting, I'm not any better. I'm not any more evolved. It's, and just with people in general, that was a huge one for me, is just that we're all equal.
Yeah.
But, I know, I wanted just to say really quick too, that, listening to it, for some reason for me, when I flip to the audio version, so I have Audible on my phone, when I flip to the audio version, that I don't know why, because I'm super visual and I always am having to see things for it to make sense. For whatever reason, when I flip to audio, it made so much more sense to me, and just was able to break it down into chunks. Like, I found when I would visually read it, I would stare at the same thing over and over and over, and it just, like you said, sometimes you do have to sit with it, but it just really wasn't making sense, and I almost couldn't fully pay attention. But once I heard it, it made total sense. It was really weird. So just pay attention to, what works for you too, because again, there's no one way to do it. Okay, did we want to say anything else about that paragraph? We kind of, I think, went over what the course has meant for both of us.
Yeah. I feel like I could talk all day about this paragraph, so it's kind of hard to feel like, wait a minute, how many? we could literally spend every other episode from here on in talking about this paragraph, because like we said, in every sentence within this book is the truth. It's every sentence can be, you can expand on it, you can extrapolate it on it. And even just this where it says the course does not aim at teaching the meaning of love, for that is beyond what can be taught. And even that is just a wholehearted feeling now, that I just know deep down that once you start to let go of whatever you can, love will come. It'll show itself, because it is there. And so that's what even that this means to me. It is the course doesn't aim at being like, here's how to love someone, here's how to here's how to be a very like an unconditionally loving person. We are all those things. In fact, we actually are, in truth, each a being that has unconditional love, that is unconditional love. And this course is not meant to teach you how to do that. It's how to undo the stuff that's stopping you from allowing yourself to be that amazing, unconditional, loving person.
Yes. And yeah, I was going to say, for me, it's really been just being able to shift that perspective, right? And letting go, like you said. Yeah. So, and that's really what that sentence says to me. It's just about letting go of all the stories or the stuff we've bought into that's blocking us from from remembering who we really are.
Yeah. And those things come up, those little any resistance comes up, you'll know it's there because it doesn't feel good. You will know because of how you feel. So if you start feeling uncomfortable or feeling a little bit aggravated even, or irritated or downright angry, or full on wrath, that's your resistance.
That's what it's talking about.
It's
doing
all it is,
letting go of it.
And so that's your indicator.
That's a good one.
So if you're not walking around and feeling good in a moment, you can ask yourself, like, what is this for? Like, do I have a resistance happening right now? Is it trying to keep me in a state of feeling some kind of resistance, or am I going to use this instance to learn how to let go yet again of something else?
Awesome. So good. Well, this is great. So moving forward, we will probably just choose little parts to read, maybe not in any specific order, but if you want to bring your book or have it with you to follow along, then you can read it there with us. And then we'll, I guess our big goal with this is really to explain some of the passages and what they mean to us and how to apply them to everyday life and make it a little bit more practical and bring that awareness into our daily lives in a kind of deep way, but fun as well. Yeah. We promise.
We'll try to be
really
fun.
We're really going to lighten this sucker up.
Really fun.
We're super fun.
At least we think so, yeah.
Okay, so we will meet you back here for our next episode.
All right, bye.
Bye.
Please click and subscribe if you enjoyed this episode. And if you would like to learn more about readings and coaching with Chris and Amy, please visit chrisatley.com. Until next time.